Tanzai kagiawak, zikason sipsis kipotagao tsinia, kamasitik nigutuasik ninaskon kitsimani rumio kisagao. Good morning, my name is Brookskar Paul. I'm the Shadow Minister for Indigenous Relations with the Alberta New Democrats. Thank you for joining us today. I'd like to acknowledge that the land in which we are gathered today, Amiskwaciwâskahikan, is Treaty 6 territory, the traditional territory of the Nahio, the Blackfoot, the Nakota Sioux, the Dene, Saulteaux, the homelands of the Métis, and the homelands of many Indigenous people who now call this place home. I want to thank those who are standing with me today. I have Chief Allan Adam, Grand Chief Trevor Mercury, Philip Johnson, Margaret McQuaid-Boyd, Kyle Kasawski, Alberta New Democrat Shadow Minister for Municipal Affairs, Jodi Calahoo-Stonehouse, Alberta New Democrat Shadow Minister for Forestry and Parks, and Naheed Nenshi, leader of Alberta's New Democrats. First Nations in this province have had a difficult past few weeks. This UCP government and this Premier continue to ignore and disrespect Indigenous voices and threaten inherent and treaty rights. Today, there will be a tabling of Bill 50 in the House. It is a long bill and a problematic bill around municipal affairs, which hides some deeply concerning policy. It's a bill that once again infringes on the rights of Indigenous communities. Bill 50 outright prevents the ability for status First Nations to vote in a municipality they reside in. Everyone should have the essential right to vote, and the UCP are putting up barriers for everyone in cruel and unnecessary ways. And quite frankly, it is an affront to democracy and discrimination based on residency. First Nations and the municipality of Wood Buffalo are okay with it. Why aren't the UCP? If there's one thing to be said about this Premier and her government's horrible policies targeting First Nations, it is that she continues to unite them. We know there are diverse perspectives on this and every voice must be heard, but the UCP does not do that. She unites the First Nations by threatening separatism, and now she unites them once again with this horrible legislation by taking away the right to vote for thousands. The First Nations are angry, and standing with me today are representatives from various treaties who would like to express their opinions on this upcoming bill today. I'd like to now introduce Chief Allan Adam.
Good morning, everyone. You know, when we introduced this Bill 50, what it does, it allows the continuation of the Athabasca Chippewa First Nation to have a democratic process of where we were used to voting in municipal affairs. And the reason why I say we're used to is because in the last year, things have changed because Fort Chip and the Athabasca Chippewa First Nation, we created a reserve, which is a checkerboard, and it was approved, and now the Athabasca Chippewa First Nation resides in the community of Fort Chip, which is run and governed by municipal affairs. Our roads, our waters, sewers, everything is all run by municipal affairs. And now, because we've changed it into a reserve status, we're taking our democracy away from us because we're not allowed to vote on municipal affairs, yet they control 100% of all municipal services to the Athabasca Chippewa First Nation. And therefore, we want this bill to push and to move forward because it allows us to have a democratic process of voicing our concern to the municipality as well. And therefore, we view that this is the right path to go, and we feel that it is in our best interest. When you look at Bill 54 that the Premier brings out, which is in its second reading, excludes all the First Nations in Alberta not to vote within the municipal bylaw that's coming. And she's going to drop it to 10%. And when you look at the demographics, just Treaty 8 alone, there are 36,000 First Nations people within Treaty 8 alone The demographics, you say about 3/4 of that, you've taken away probably about maybe 60% of the eligible voters that could vote. And I'm only talking for ACFN. But when you look at the demographics, look at Treaty 6, look at Treaty 7, now all of a sudden you ask yourself, where is our voice? If I'm 1% of all the First Nations in Alberta, well, where is my voice? I want my voice to continue on. I gave my support and endorsed the mayor that ran for the municipal election the last time. How am I going to endorse him and vote for them this time? That's taken away from me because of the legislation that lies within the province of Alberta. And if you want to take it a step further, I think it's a slap in the face to the First Nations. Takes us back to 1956 where we were not allowed to vote in Canada. Alberta still follows that same process here in 2025. It's a discrimination act, and it's always geared towards First Nations people. I've said this yesterday when it comes to the Separation Act. When I introduced myself, I sort of introduced myself as Chief Adidas Bag. And when I say that, it's just like I have to go where the province says they want to go and pick up the bag and take them along. It does not work that way. We have a treaty right. We are a sovereign nation here in Alberta. Alberta has no sovereignty. You have no language-based nothing. The world lives here in Alberta, and we welcome you here in Alberta because of our treaties that we've signed back in 1899 and cohesion in 1900. It was a sharing agreement, and we still live by that today. And we want our democratic process to continue on and allow the Athabasca Chippewa First Nation to vote in the municipal election that's coming up, where the Premier has allowed this separation bill to be panned out and allow the First Nations to be excluded from the Alberta process.
Thank you, Chief Adam. Next up, we have Grand Chief Trevor Mercury from Treaty 8 First Nations of Alberta.
Good morning. Trevor Mercury, Grand Chief, Treaty 8 of Alberta. I stand here in support of ACFN and their issue regarding the municipal elections and how our nations are not eligible to vote. If we look at the municipal bylaws, a lot of times they'll say that we are non-rate payers. That may be true that we don't pay rates directly to the municipal governments, but we are directly impacted by the municipal governments and some of their dealings within the province. Up in our territory in northern Alberta, things would look completely different when it comes to the MLAs in the area or the types of elections that happen in our area because of the vast number of First Nations people that reside in the communities up in northern Alberta. Now, what bothers me about that is they say we're not ratepayers, but they don't mind using our numbers for hospitals, schools, facilities that help their children grow up to be healthy people while our communities are suffering. There's a massive discrimination issue right now when it comes to how these municipalities, these regions are conducting themselves when it comes to the environment and the lands of our territories that are directly impacting treaty. We aren't looking to become a fourth level government here, but we are looking to have our voices heard in a democratic process, as Chief Adam has stated. We don't have that happening right now within Alberta. We understand it's only in Alberta. The neighboring provinces do allow their First Nations to vote, their communities to vote in these elections. This has been a long-standing issue between the province, the municipalities, and the First Nations, and it's been brought up before. How do we get around it is, the question of the day. We need to provide solutions, and the solution is to allow us to vote in a way that respects our treaty and respects our people. when we talk about, when when Alberta talks about the resources, the billions and trillions of dollars that supposedly they're missing out on because of the federal decisions, those resources do not belong to the province of Alberta. They never did. They belong to the First Nations. Yet you can go to any First Nation in Alberta and see the poverty that exists amongst our people, while the neighboring communities have every resource and accessibility to services that our people don't have. The discrimination at every level of service in the province is impacting our people's life expectancy to the tune of almost 20 years, 18.5 years in Alberta. That in itself is an issue that should not be tolerated, but yet it's tolerated in Alberta and it's pushed aside. All of these issues can be rectified through proper work. It might take a long time, but we have the answers. Just nobody wants to listen to a lot of the issues that we have. This is one of the many issues that we have. Now, one of the issues that we face regarding, municipalities like Fort McMurray and other municipalities in the area in northern Alberta is that they have these municipalities called specialized municipalities. And they kind of have a overarching control of the whole municipality due to the numbers. And a lot of these communities are self-sustaining, yet they are granted this specialized municipality status. We need people to look into that. There needs to be journalists like yourselves look into these issues a little more deeply. It's easy to come to a media relations, things like this, and get the information from us as chiefs. But sometimes you have to go looking too. We see a lot of our issues never make it to mainstream media. But today, we'd like for that to change. We need our issues to be heard. We need our people to be heard and to be able to vote in some of these elections that impact our people heavily. So we're here in support of ACFN and their issue. They have unique issues, and we're here to support them. Thank you.
I can take it. Thank you so much, Grand Chief Mercury and Chief Adam, for being here and for standing up for your people, but also standing up for democracy. When taken as a whole, Bills 50, 51, and 54, bills that were snuck in at the end of a long legislative session, bills that never had any discussion with the public, nor was there any mandate from the provincial government to pass these bills. And when taken as a package, they are the most anti-democratic legislation in the history of Alberta. They disenfranchise voters. They make it harder for anyone who might not vote Conservative to vote. They open up unlimited amounts of dark money for Conservative politicians. They cater to conspiracy theorists who are worried about vote tabulators, which are not the same as voting machines. They even got the conspiracy theory wrong. And they're trying to steal democracy from Albertans. The example we're hearing today with the Athabasca Chippewan First Nation and their inability to vote in elections that directly affect them living in municipalities is just one example of the very serious challenges we have. And I want to be clear, there are opinions that differ, even on this issue, even amongst Indigenous communities. But this just goes to show that this make-it-up-as-you-go-along government has continued to make up legislation that has very serious impacts that no one has asked for, that no one needs, and that the Premier takes us all for fools thinking that somehow these will strengthen democracy, when every one of these acts is to ensure to make that life gets easier for Conservative-friendly candidates. But Albertans are smarter than that. And together, Albertans will ensure that every single person who wants to vote has the right to vote. We will ensure that we drive people to the polls and get them their ID and make sure that they are able to vote if they want to vote. Because unlike our opponents opposite, we believe in democracy. Whether you support us or don't support us, you have fundamental rights. Indigenous or non-Indigenous, those rights include the right to vote and the right to vote in a free and fair election. So with that, the Chiefs have kindly agreed that they will be happy to take questions. I'm standing here with my colleagues, my incredible colleagues, Arcand-Paul, our Shadow Minister of Indigenous Relations, Jodi Calahoo-Stonehouse, our Shadow Minister of Forestry and Parks, and a huge, huge voice for Indigenous people, and Kasawski, our Shadow Minister for Municipal Affairs, and any of us would be happy to take questions.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to begin in the room, but just a reminder, if you are on Zoom, all you have to do is raise your hand, and we'll take questions from you as well. Starting in the room with Lisa Johnson from Canadian Press.
Hi, thanks for coming here today. Just to clarify, Bill 50 has already been introduced. Is it going into committee of the whole, and are you introducing an amendment to it today? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, MLA Arcand-Paul will introduce an amendment today to restore the voting rights specifically for members of the Athabasca Chippewa First Nation in the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo.
And maybe this is for Chief Adam, but could you explain how this situation, how come these voters are not ratepayers because the First Nation falls under federal government funding, or how does that work exactly? Sorry, this is pretty ignorant, but...
It falls under federal funding. But because it falls under federal funding, federal government gives us the money, and we make an agreement with the municipality, and it just goes directly to the municipality from the federal government. So, in other words, we are part of the municipality regardless of what, because the money that we should have been given to the municipality, it just goes from the federal government and it just goes directly to them. That's how it's set up. And it's very complicated.
Shayen Skolski, CTV News.
Thank you so much for taking our questions today. Questions for Chief Allan Adam to start, and I apologize, it's unrelated to Bill 50 in today's announcement. I'm wanting to ask about your comments yesterday in regards to the talk and rhetoric of separation and wanting to cease any development or exploration to stop if Smith's rhetoric continues. I'm just hoping you can clarify your comments and what you want to hear from the Premier on this.
In regards to the Premier introducing a separation bill, you've heard Grand Chief say that the resources don't belong to Albertans. The resources belong to the Native people. And the Premier wants to separate with Alberta or Albertans. Well, if you want to separate from Canada and you still have exploration rights, why should we allow you guys to continue to explore within our traditional territories if you want to leave? Pack up your bag and go. That's my message to the Premier. You're not welcome here anymore.
And I know in your comments yesterday you had mentioned that you called on chiefs to do the same and call on the Premier to do the same for their respective regions. I'm just wondering, I guess, have you heard that support, and perhaps from Chief Mercury, are you hearing that call as well?
Yeah, sorry, the Chiefs are united on this issue regarding the separation, and the Chiefs had emergency meetings yesterday with the Treaties 6, 7, and 8 of Alberta. We're very concerned about the rhetoric around separation because it fundamentally forgets that we are the rightful owners of this land. They use the words like sovereignty. Sovereignty is not a word that belongs with Alberta. It's our words. We're the only ones that can use that word. There's nothing sovereign about Alberta, and there'll never be anything sovereign about Alberta. It only takes some fact-checking, a little bit of background checking to see that separation is pretty much impossible in Alberta. And if separation does happen, it won't be on the terms that they would like to see because the resources belong to us and our people. That's a fundamental right that we have that's enshrined through our inherent rights in our treaty. So when we hear this talk about the millions and billions of dollars that are being funneled from these companies and the province, those are our resources. We have to give thanks to the Premier for the one thing that it's allowed us to do is to talk about this issue that we've been facing, and that Albertans are becoming aware of the power that our nations do have and the authority that our nations do have. If she truly believed that Alberta was sovereign, we would not be sitting across the table from her. And that should tell the general public enough about who we are and what we and how we own the territories than a lot of the rhetoric that's coming from her party. So we're here to clear up a lot of issues. We've been silent enough. We've been quiet. We've been sitting back watching this government push aside our rights and our sovereignty and use our words, and we've had enough. Thank you.
Catherine Kasawski, Alberta Today.
Merci. I'm wondering, can you give examples, Chief Adam, of the type of decisions that you need to have a say in? Is it water, wastewater, fire? Like, what are the type of land use? All of the above? What are the types of things you're concerned with?
Well, that's a crazy question to ask because we're part of the society of Canadian democracy where Alberta is, sidestep to here we are and we're providing services, and all the services that municipal provides, we accept them all. And you got to remember one thing. First Nations are given federal dollars for roads, for water treatment plants, for schools, all these things. Our capital dollars, the Athabasca Chipewyan First Nation, capital dollars that come from the federal government, all goes into the municipal of Wood Buffalo because we reside in the community of Fort Chip. Our dollars from capital for water treatment plant went into the municipal water treatment plant in Fort Chip, $5 million. The school that we're going to build that comes from the federal government and provincial government is going to be built in Fort Chip. And we don't have a say. So our municipal affairs government are going to be doing things within the community, and we're going to sit back and watch and have nothing to say about it. And we should be allowed to develop our community in a beautiful way because we think and we believe that our First Nations have a lot of beautiful, unique opportunities that we could give to the world. Instead of focusing on separation, why don't we just focus in on the health crisis that's going on here in Alberta, which the government deflected by putting this separation thing on the table and bring it back to the scandal that's going on within the House when it comes to the health issue. That's my message.
And when Prime Minister Mark Carney appoints his cabinet, what are you hoping to see? I know you've been to Ottawa, you've spoken about the water, about the land. What do you hope to see from the cabinet?
I think when the Prime Minister re-engages and puts his cabinet in motion, you got the Premier here in Alberta, you got the Premiers across the country with all their cabinets in place. I strongly recommend that they start talking about a national and water energy plan and include the First Nations in it and start opening up the country for free trade because that's the problem. That's why we can't build pipelines. That's why we can't get any corridors. That's why we can't get any major production on what you call industrial movement because we don't have a water and energy policy here in Canada where we all could talk about, where we're all on the same board, where the Prime Minister could go to the world and say, we're all aligned on this. But instead, we're sending the Premier going all over the places and everything. You got the Prime Minister going all other places. You got everybody sending the wrong message because we don't have a national energy and water policy. And the Athabasca Chipewyan First Nation, we've created a water policy. And that alone should set precedents with the Prime Minister because you're going around and you're talking to Canadians about the new water policy that you want to integrate throughout Canada. We have a water policy that's going to be fit for our community, and we are downstream from one of the largest world development. And if we have a water policy that's going to protect us, could you imagine that water policy, how easy it's going to be for the rest of Canadians if you don't have that kind of development upstream from you? So I believe we have the best water policy created in Canada, and it should be for all of Canadians, because that's what we're here to do, and we want to continue to share what we have, and that is shareable for everybody.
Sean Amato, City News Now.
Hi, this is for either chief. Just wondering if you can comment on the amount of anger that we're seeing in Alberta today and where we go from here, where First Nations people go from here. I've been doing this for about 20 years now. I don't think I've ever seen an Alberta bill literally thrown on the ground before.
The First Nations are frustrated. When you start to realize that you don't have a democratic process anymore, what good is it to us? We're not mad. We're just voicing our concern of the little things that are wrong within the provincial government legislation that allows us not to participate in the democratic process. And we're asking the province and the people of Alberta to open that door to allow the democratic process to prevail.
Yeah, I would say the Treaty 6, 7, and 8 chiefs are quite concerned with the movement of the UCP lately. We do have relationships with UCP behind closed doors. We sit with their ministers, we visit with them. They tell us what they think, and for the most part, they're very sympathetic on a one-on-one when we have these issues. But when it comes to voting on these issues and it comes to pushing these issues, it seems like the UCP have to toe a party line with the others. And it's really disrupting the relationship that we have with the province and certain ministers. A lot of the legislation that's moving down is a roundabout way of attacking our people. We're talking about the Critical Infrastructure Act, the All Seasons Resorts Act, the regulations that have been changed when it comes to hunting, Bill 54. It doesn't end. And we have concern about where she's getting the ideas for a lot of these bills. Where are they coming from? Is it coming from Albertans? Is it coming from industry? Who is leading the UCP? Where are these ideas coming from? How is it that we're even entertaining a separation when they're talking about 30% of Albertans may support it? Where are the 70% of Albertans that don't? Where are their voices? Why are they not being heard? The way the UCP is handling government in Alberta right now is not very good. It's not transparent. There's seven different investigations going on. A lot of our federal funding flows through the province, and there's no accountability when it comes to those funds. They don't report on those funds. When we need services from the province, they are nowhere to be found. So yes, we have serious issues with today's reality for our people in 2025. But the fact of the matter is our people are getting smarter, and as you heard yesterday in the press release, we have lawyers, we have doctors, we have people that are very capable. And it's to the point now that we have to legally challenge so many of these issues because we know they're fundamentally wrong. But yet the government will push it forward because they feel like they can get away with it. And because they can get away with it in Alberta, they have been getting away with a lot of the issues that we're facing. So we do have issues. It's not only Bill C-54, it's many other issues that we're dealing with when it comes to our children, the water, the land, all of the resources that are stripped from our people. We're taking them back. And it's hard for the general public, it's hard for governments to understand or want to give us what truly belongs to us back. And the stuff that and what we do have control of, we will stay in control of. We're not giving up any of our rights. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. When we talk about the treaty and how treaty was made, we hear a lot of how the land was surrendered, ceded and surrendered. That's what we hear. Those words are not in our vocabulary. Those words mean nothing to us. the earth, the earth is our mother. We would never give our mother away. And that's the fundamental difference between our First Nations people and the general public that don't understand who we are, is that they took our treaties, they changed the wording. Those are not the true treaties. We still have our sovereignty, we still have our rights, and they're still intact. And courts have been proving it time and time again. It's just the fact of the matter that we have to take our issues to court time and time again is a major issue. So, you know, we are concerned. I wouldn't say we're angry, but we're very concerned on all of these issues. Thank you.
Mr. Nenshi, this is, I think, the first time we've heard from you since the Premier made her address. Just wondering, what did you make of that address, and where does the NDP go forward from here?
The Premier is taking us all for fools. She's standing back going, well, I got nothing to do with this. We're just letting people do what they want to do on separation. Never mind that she didn't talk to Indigenous peoples. She didn't talk to lawyers. She didn't talk to Albertans. Premier, we're smarter than that. We all know you're completely behind this. We know this is a desperate attempt to change the channel because you're failing in every possible way on things you actually are supposed to be doing. You're failing on healthcare, you're failing on education, you're failing on the economy, you're failing on the cost of living, you're failing Albertans every single day. The teachers have voted against a deal. AUP, the public employees, are going to strike soon. That includes wildland firefighters and sheriffs, because the Premier is unable to actually do her job. The only thing she knows how to do is pick fights. And you'll notice that in her statement, she didn't mention a few things. She didn't mention that it was Red Dress Day, that it was the day that we think of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. She didn't mention that the day of her address was the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Netherlands by brave Canadian troops, because she doesn't want to talk about Canada. She doesn't want to talk about what there is to be proud of here. And you notice one word she never used was the word win. She talked about fighting a lot. She loves to fight because she thinks that fighting is what keeps her popular. But she doesn't like to win. And Alberta's New Democrats are proud Canadians. And yes, there are lots of things we should be concerned about. We should be concerned about equalization. It's not fair to Alberta. We should be concerned about making sure that we have energy corridors and access to markets. I'll remind you that it was New Democrats in Alberta who built the only pipeline to Tidewater. Conservatives, for all their rhetoric, have built 0 miles of pipelines to Tidewater in the lifetime of anyone alive today. And the way we get these things done is we win. We make deals. The Premier is unable to do that because making deals hurts her politically. She wants to continue to fight. So as a result, Alberta's New Democrats will champion Canada, will stand with the majority of Albertans championing this nation, because we don't pick fights, we win them.
We have time for one more set of questions. James Snell, Western Standard.
Thank you so much for taking my question today. Premier Smith has said that Canada is no longer working for Alberta. And I'm wondering if Indigenous communities might sometimes feel the same way, that Canada is not working well for them as well.
Chiefs?
I don't know how to respond to that, because we get 100% of our funding from Canada. And we get 0 from Alberta. Nothing. So how could she say that we're not benefiting from Canada? How could Albertans say that? Some of yous make salaries well over $300,000 a year, $200,000 a year in the workforce from where I come from. How could you say that? How could you say that we live in poverty when we're living in one of the richest provinces in the world? You look at Albertans when you drive around. What do you see them driving? You don't see them driving 1980 vehicles. You see them driving $92,000 vehicles that was on the market last year, which is now $120,000 because of President Trump. Don't complain about what Canada is doing. Complain about what Trump is doing, because it's going to have a greater impact to us here in Alberta, because we like to buy stuff.
All right, Grand Chief, do you want to jump in on that? Is Canada working?
Much like the government today, UCP, the Liberal government, we're forced to work with them. We've worked with the Conservative government in the past, and we've seen some things there that we did not like as First Nations people. We've dealt with the Liberal government now for 10 years, and we've seen many things that we don't like from the federal government on many issues that we face. But we do know that between the two major governments and federal parties, that the Liberals have traditionally been more receptive to the First Nations issues and some of the issues that we're facing daily. Now, that's not to say that we're happy with the relationship that we have today with the federal government, as they're supposed to uphold treaty from the treaty that we have with the Crown. They're supposed to uphold the responsibilities, which they haven't been doing. So I would say overall that they have not been working properly with the nations when it comes to our rights and recognition, and also a lot of what we're facing today here in Alberta. At some point or another, Prime Minister Carney is going to have to come out and make a stand when it comes to this separation talk within Alberta, and also have some of their ministers also come in and kind of educate some of our people when it comes to separating and where the resources lie. As Chief Adam has stated, you know, Alberta came with absolutely nothing. They had nothing. In the 1930s, they had absolutely nothing. They were broke. The only way they could survive was through the NRTA, in which the federal government unilaterally agreed to allow the province of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba to manage the resources. At that time, we were not allowed to have legal counsel or even have representation at the table. So they unilaterally took all our resources, which they use today, and they use the NRT today to claim ownership of our resources. That's the NRTA is enshrined within the Constitution, and it's going to be very hard for us to dismantle. But there's other ways that we can benefit from the resource extraction in our territories, and that's through agreements, resource revenue sharing, proper agreements, proper resource sharing, proper funding for our children and our kids in our schools and our facilities. There's no excuse for the way we're being treated today, federally or provincially. It can be proven through statistics and funding that we're severely underfunded through many of our programs designed to fail. That time has come and gone. We're here today to make sure that people are aware of our issues within Canada and Alberta. So no, I wouldn't say we have a perfect relationship. We've never did. And it's going to be a long time before the issues that we face are rectified to the point that we can say that we have a good relationship with any level of government at this point in time. Thank you.
Now, James, I know you didn't ask me, but I'm going to answer anyway, because that's what I do. But I want to be very clear about one thing. This is a big, messy, chaotic country. And in the family, we squabble, and we have legitimate concerns, and things are not perfect. But Canada is not broken. Alberta is not broken. Like every nation, like every government, there are things that could be better. And today, many of our neighbors are struggling. For many of our neighbors, making it to the end of the month feels like an impossible dream. A trip to the till at the grocery store is something that instills fear even for people who are working and going to work every single day. We got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work to do to fix this place. But we still live in the greatest nation ever created. And it is created because we are blessed with natural resources, but our greatest natural resource is each other. And this nation, unlike almost every nation in the world, is based on a simple tenet that everybody belongs, and that every single one of us not only has the opportunity to build something here, but has the right to thrive here. Let's not break that. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. That concludes the news conference. Be well, everyone.